Good morning everybody, my name is Robin Lewis. It's time for a new project and I'm pretty excited about getting into this one. It is the middle of summer here in Townsville and boy is it warm at the moment. It's 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm already sweating. I've talked about this before in my shop tour, but that is the only way I get work done because it is impossibly humid in this place. And oh shit, Lisa. Okay, this is Silky Oak, and it's northern Silky Oak to be specific. It's a lot redder than your southern Silky Oak. These are all parts that I've got off of doors and door jambs, just bits around the house, and I'm going to turn this into an end grain chopping board. Let's get into it. You know, they've lived next door to us for the last 2 years. These boards have already been dressed. I did that when I pulled them apart. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out what configuration I want and then cut some of the pieces down to size. Next, I'm going to glue this up in 3 different sections. I'll start with this piece and this piece. I'll get a big solid blank and then come back and glue both of these pieces onto this big guy. When I put everything together, you can see that this joint isn't particularly great. So now I can take these 2 side pieces over to the jointer and flatten this up. And after a lot more jointing than I'd hoped for, because my jointer is on the useless side, I now have a very thin board here, which I think actually might look quite nice, because you've got the thin, a little bit thicker, and then the thick board. So now I can glue these 2 side pieces to this main middle one. It is the next day. I've taken off most of the clamps. Let's get the last 2 off. And there we go, a nice big chunky block. So the next thing is going to be to square this up, then we can start cutting it into strips. So to bring this down, I'm going to be using this mostly flat side as a reference. So I'm going to be skip planing. I'll bring this side down, and then once I've got those in parallel, I'll make sure that the sides are 90 degrees. So after getting it out of the thicknesser, I did a quick check, and as luck would have it, this is already square. Alright, so now I've got 3 very big beefy blocks which I can glue together. I want to bring you in really close for this, because this is why I love using Silky Oak. Look at that absolute sexiness. That is just one of the most beautiful properties of this wood. Whipping out the old daggy clamps for this. With this blank all glued up and out of the clamps, it's now time to start cutting strips through in this direction. Now, if I was a bit more clever, I would have made sure that this line was flush, but you can see if I tip this over, it's not really. So what I'll do is I'll just draw a straight line and then cut with that. Now that might have you questioning what I'm talking about, because the next step would normally be done on a table saw, but I do not have a table saw, so everything is getting done on my bandsaw. I've cut like this before and it doesn't work too bad. You can see I've got a line here. I'll take this edge, rest that up against the fence. You can see it doesn't actually meet all the way, but I know it's pretty close. And then I'll push it into the blade using what I do have hitting this fence as a sort of fulcrum. So judging by the fact that this looks quite parallel, I reckon as long as I'm using this, I'm going to be all right. The bottom line is I can just follow that line anyway and make adjustments as I go. Now with the 3 pieces cut, you do that very iconic shot where you flip the pieces, over they go, and that becomes your board. But in my excitement to do this cut, what I forgot to do was flatten this surface here. So what I'm going to have to do is now go to the drum stand, and that's a bit annoying. Guess we're going to try the thicknesser. One of the issues running this through in this direction is the grain is running that way. Yeah, you really want to be planing the grain in that direction. But what I'm hoping is if I run it through on a bit of an angle like that, the blades will be cutting at an angle, so I should be right. Well, the thicknesser worked an absolute treat. This has actually come up pretty good. I'm happy with those joints. All right, one last glue up. My life has become a glue up. It is the next day. I gave this glue a full 24 hours to cure. You'll notice there's a bit of epoxy over here. There's another piece over there. When I was jointing these edges yesterday, there was a bit of blowout, and so I've just gone ahead and filled this. This is now going to be the bottom of the chopping board. I might actually sand all the way through it, but if I don't, that's all right. This just becomes the bottom, so you won't be putting this epoxy in contact with any food. That is an end grain chopping board. It's a very rough end grain chopping board, but it is an end grain chopping board. So let's get this in. I envision this is going to take many, many, many passes. now with this face cleaned up and flat, I can now flip it over, use that as the reference face, and then start cleaning up this face. Okay, that is all done. Well, this is done up to 80 grit. I'm probably only going to go up to 120 because even at 80 grit like this, it feels really good, and that's the nature of end grain. I'm really frustrated is the word by these little holes here. So because this is reclaimed timber, there was some nail holes, but I was hoping I was going to miss them. On the underside, there's none, but on the side, the show face, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. These little holes. That's all right, let's just call it character. All right, and this is probably gonna be the best part of this process, and that is putting some oil on this. As soon as I can get this glove on, I'm gonna be using some orange oil. This is an Australian product. It does have a smell. Some people don't like it because they smell. I personally think it's pretty awesome. I'm not worrying about any cloths or paintbrush or anything. I'm simply gonna pour this on, and then with my hand, just go to town. And one coat of oil later, and this is done. And it looks amazing. I mean, most end grain chopping boards do, just by virtue of the fact that you're seeing that end grain pattern. They all look incredible. This one in particular has got these holes, which I'm not too stoked about. I took a bit of a gamble and lost using reclaimed timber, but it is what it is. But during the edit, I decided I'm not actually happy with the way it's turned out. So I'm gonna be taking this board to my thickness planer and running it through. Against a lot of advice, I actually just want to see how that turns out. So that'll be coming up in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something out of it. If you did, it would be amazing if you click that thumbs up. And if you enjoy this type of content and want to see more of it, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe. So thanks again, take care everyone. My name is Robin Lewis, and I'll see you in the next one.